Friday on the BWI Daily Edition means Ryan Snyder. He's here to give you a recruiting update. It was a big weekend last weekend for Penn State football recruiting, and of course give you some guys to watch, some updates of the guys that are currently committed and in high school. We're going to do all of that, plus one of my favorite segments, Ryan Snyder's Best Bets. And we'll be getting to that at the end of the show. Of course, we always preview the Penn State game, and if you need something to make Villanova a little more interesting, and you know what, I've been talking this game down all week long, and it's going to be a great game just because I've done that all week, Ryan. I know it.
Villanova's put up some points this year, man. That's the one thing I've learned. I think they're averaging like 45 points a game, I believe. Now, obviously, it's against inferior opponents. Lehigh, Richmond was one.
Yeah.
But they can put up some points. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. I think that maybe kind of hints at maybe what my take will be this week, but we'll get to that at the end.
So we got that coming up, and of course we're going to start with some recruiting news, and Ryan is our insider. Blue White Illustrated, if you want to check out the website, we have stuff there. That's some of it's free, but to get the really good stuff, to know the stuff that's on the inside, you need to be a subscriber to Blue White Illustrated, and that's what Ryan has over on our Lions Den premium board. But we got a couple things we can talk about today, and I know you mentioned some of this on your recruiting podcast with Greg Pickle. What are some of the names? What are some of the things that were coming out of the whiteout last weekend versus Auburn?
Yeah, sorry, I got people, sources actually texting me right now. We'll get to them in a little bit.
Did you just Adam Schefter me? Did you just you got news on camera? That's
it's
awesome.
Nothing major. We'll talk about it later on.
I'll take it. I love it.
All right, so obviously this was a crazy list this past week, and Greg and I hit on a lot of the top guys that were there. You know, almost 50 some uncommitted scholarship players that were there. That was pretty much the deepest list since 2018, and I think it was maybe the most talented list. When I went back and looked at that 2018 Ohio State list, there were some really elite caliber players, but as far as total scholarship worthy guys, this was the most I had. But you know, we kind of hit on that a little earlier in the week. So what I wanted to do today was kind of look at maybe some of those scholarship guys who are getting overlooked a little bit. Guys who, you know, we're talking about Tamir Robinsons all the time. We're talking about Josiah Trotters and the Roddy Gallaghers. You know, all those elite guys. They get a lot of attention. We've hit on them, you and I, 3-4 times now, it feels like. So today I thought it was good to maybe look at a few scholarship guys who were going under the radar a little bit. And I'll just get right into it if that's cool with you.
Sure, absolutely.
First guy, really, I think Penn State fans really kind of need to start focusing on a little bit more is linebacker Tony Rojas. We have him at 6'3", 205. He's from Fairfax, Virginia. This was Tony's second visit. He came in the summertime, and don't believe he worked out. I think it was just no, he did work out. Excuse me. He did work out for the staff at a camp because that's where I got these testing numbers from that I'm about to share. 4.5 second 40, a 4.2 second shuttle, and a triple jump that surpassed 30 feet.
Those are all great numbers.
Awesome numbers. Yeah. And so when you look at his scholarship list so far, you know, he's under 10, and a lot of people have been asking, you know, why if he's so important, why hasn't more schools offered him? And what I keep coming back to is one, he hasn't camped really too many other schools. I believe Virginia Tech got him on for a camp, and I think maybe the other one was like East Carolina or something like that. And there might be one other I'm not thinking of at the moment, but it's also important to remember that Virginia didn't really have a true season last year, and then. I think he played 6 games in the spring, and even the spring season in Virginia was kind of a mess. But when I went back and looked at that, all of his film really is wide receiver and defensive end. So there's very little film of him playing linebacker. And I think as more schools see his updated film, and then, you know, obviously do some more digging on some measurable stuff, I could see more offers coming in. So, but I'll also add that I think Penn State's in a very good spot at the moment. I think they probably are the team to beat. And I don't know if there's going to be an early commitment or anything like that, but all signs right now point to Penn State here, and how deep this linebacker board is so deep in 2023. I just don't be surprised if maybe he or Phil Picciotti, who we've talked about him a little bit, I'm not going to discuss him today, but those two right now kind of give me the impression that they could potentially be the first linebackers to commit. And, if all goes well, they could maybe take 4 linebackers in the 2023 class. That'd be maybe a little higher, 3, I think would be the preferred number. But there's a lot of deep talent here, and Tony Rojas is someone fans need to pay attention to.
That's a huge reversal from the last couple of years where Penn State has been scratching and clawing to find a linebacker to add to their classes. So getting a class with that sort of size and, as you described, a lot of depth there, that'd be a huge thing for Penn State. This is something that I don't know if, and I'm going to ask you a question that I don't know if you can truly answer, but it's an interesting thought. Because it was the whiteout and because it was a win and all of those things, how important is that? But in the light of it wasn't Ohio State, Michigan, or a traditional Big Ten East or a Big Ten team. Does the team matter? Do the stakes and all those things matter the same way with it being Auburn, or does it just mean the environment and the game and the atmosphere and all those things?
Yeah, the environment, the game, the atmosphere are, I'd say, 80% of it.
Okay.
And look, Auburn's still Auburn. That's still an SEC team who, sure, they might not be considered an SEC favorite this year, but that's a brand name. I mean, all you had to do was walk around Beaver Stadium and see all the big time. I mean, there were a ton of Auburn fans there. They travel well. They are a major respected name. And one of these guys I'm going to hit on here is actually let's just get into him now. We'll do Kobe Keenum. He was the second guy I was going to discuss here as far as some players who I think are going overlooked a little bit. So Kobe, as I was hinting there, he grew up a diehard Auburn fan. His sister actually attends Auburn, and I learned that she came for the trip. Just from talking to some sources and contacts I like, I know they had fun with that in the recruiting lounge before the game, and just joking around. They're having a fun time, of course. But the big thing with Keenum is that Ohio State, Auburn hasn't offered yet, and
okay.
The longer they hold off on offering him, I think it's going to put Penn State just in a better position the longer it goes. So right now, I think Penn State may be the favorite with him, and he's very close friends with Alex Birchmeier. I saw him on the sidelines 3 or 4 times throughout the pregame, and every time he was with Birchmeier, joking, following him around. Alex was introducing him to other people.
Yeah,
you could tell that there's a genuine relationship there, one that's not just getting to know him because Alex is recruiting him. I could see those guys building a real kind of friendship. And Penn State people have told me that they have kind of built that friendship. So
yeah.
He's a guard or center at the next level. I missed on this. He's 6'4", 285, Mars Hill Bible School in Florence, Alabama. Always try to get that info out there. So just another guy that I think's going over the radar or going under the radar a little bit, and wouldn't be surprised at all if maybe he comes back for a junior day in January or early next spring. He's back on campus, and I also wouldn't be surprised if his offers blow up. But I could see him being an early commitment for Penn State. And look, they need guards and center. That's important. But with Alex already committed, they'll start shifting their focus a little bit more towards tackle. So if he were to jump on board. Or he has a reason, I guess, to jump on board a little earlier with Alex committed, and then the staff really wanting to get a couple tackles on board.
It's interesting getting to see the different places Penn State has gone to with the transfer portal in Harvard and JUCO with Lackawanna, and then just getting a read on the guys that Phil Troutwine, the body types, the types of players that he's interested in bringing into the program. And one thing that I've noticed is that they are very much traditional sized and mentality offensive linemen. And you noted in some of your notes here for the show, 31-inch arms already. So like a little shorter for the position, but if you expect him to grow, that's good sized, and those are all good dimensions for an interior offensive lineman. Have you noticed that trend? Like when you look at some of these metrics and what you've seen on the recruiting breakdowns?
Yeah, I don't expect to see too many Ryan Bates kind of playing tackle. You know what I mean? Like that seems to be something that the Troutwine's definitely prioritizing. So I definitely agree with that.
Who's the next guy you want to bring up of somebody who's under the radar that needs to get a little more love today?
Yeah, Cam Lenhardt, 6'3", 220 from IMG Academy in Florida. Now look, he's a Rivals 250 prospect. So he's very much has the attention of scouts and schools. But I guess maybe why I'm stressing him is because a couple months ago, I was unsure if Penn State was pursuing him as high as his rating and rankings kind of suggested. And the one thing I've really learned over the past week or so is that Penn State really loves this kid, and as they should. He came up here earlier this summer, had a great visit. No testing numbers or anything like that. I don't think they need that for him. And I thought maybe that was one thing that they did. And, I wanted to learn the last couple of days that that's certainly not the case. So if you look at his offer sheet, 12 offers so far, Indiana, Miami, Michigan, Tennessee, West Virginia have offered. And he's from Staten Island. I believe I mentioned that, if not, but he's definitely a Northeast guy. So unlike a lot of those IMG players who are out West or down South somewhere,
Right.
he has a lot of ties to the Northeast. So, just getting him back on campus for a second visit. Just from my early talks with him, I don't see him as being somebody who would commit early. But I do see him, especially when IMG ends its season, it's a lot easier for him to travel.
Right.
Of course, IMG travels all over the place, so he's usually getting back, early Saturday from an away game or something like that. For example, for this game, he left Tampa, early Saturday, flew to New York City, didn't get there till like 1, and then didn't get into State College until about 5-ish. So he didn't get to take in all the pregame stuff as normal. Now, he was out in the field and all that, but usually they like to try and, meet with the coaches a couple hours before the game. He wasn't able to do all that. But just a guy who, we've talked about a lot of other defensive ends and different defensive tackles. And he'll definitely be a defensive end. He's actually playing linebacker more so for IMG Academy at the moment. But
another one of those.
Yeah. He's somebody I feel like I haven't maybe talked about enough. And, just from digging after this whiteout game, I've learned that he is very high on their board and someone that they would love to get committed sooner than later. I don't see that really happening in the near future, but once he gets back for a couple of junior days, he'll be somebody to watch.
The pursuit and the interest is real there, and that means that, as you just said, we all should take that a little more seriously because that's how that works, right? You have to be seriously interested before we really can get excited about something like that. Okay, so we got one more guy, right? So who do you have? And I believe it's a different. It's two players or one?
Two. So
two.
It's teammates.
Okay.
Teammates.
Okay.
Johnny Shakir, a wide receiver, and Khalil Ali, a safety. They're both from Penn State, New Jersey, I believe is how we pronounce it. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong.
It's probably like Pennyfield.
Yeah.
Conshohocken.
Yeah, Pennsauken, I think is how I'll say it, and I'm sure someone will correct me in our YouTube comments. But this is kind of similar to Cam Lenhardt in the fact that they got offers very early in the process. I think actually April 2020 was when these guys both got offers. So they've had offers from Penn State for well over a year now, and they've developed good relationships and all that. And it was clear, I would say, last fall that they were very high on Penn State. We'll say that. But what wasn't clear is if Penn State's gonna, put the pedal to the metal, I guess, and go all out in recruiting them and trying to get them commit. I was kind of under the impression that Penn State wanted to see their film early in the season. I know they wanted to get them on campus to camp. Actually, I got to double check on that. I'm not sure if they camped or not. I don't believe so. I know they visited, but I don't remember if they camped or not. But long story short here, from what I've gathered is through their first couple games, Penn State's very happy with what they've seen from both. I know Shakir, I believe he's up to 283 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns in 3 games, putting up some solid numbers there. I don't have defensive numbers for Khalil Ali, but I know Penn State's really happy with his film so far. So, just from their early visits and how much they've how positive they've been about Penn State over the last 6-7 months. These are two guys that I could see potentially being a package deal, and I hate talking about package deals in recruiting.
Right.
We I know with fans and even myself to some degree, we talk about that probably way more than we should, especially early in recruiting processes. But all signs really make sense here for potentially both of these guys being Nittany lines down the road. And again, just the big takeaway was, I thought these were guys that maybe Penn State wanted to see their whole season for and then make a decision. And already a couple games in, I'm getting indications that Penn State's really happy with what they see from both, and they're going to start really pushing hard.
Sounds like it's a little bit of a different situation where it's not a brother or a friend and trying to get the
No.
big fish. It's both these guys seem like they're
Mm-hmm.
good quality prospects, and then whether or not they want to bring both of them on. So for them, it sounds like they've had a good start to the season, and that is if both players are good, or do you think that would be so? Get into the package part. Would that cause a problem, do you think, if one of them was offered and the other wasn't? Do you think Penn State will hold off until they can decide?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, we've seen that before. Definitely, we've seen that before.
Yeah.
I never, both of them got offers so early in the process that I never really had to question it. They, like I said, I think they both were offered around April 2020. I believe Khalil was definitely offered around then, and I believe Ajani, if he wasn't the same time, was not too far after. I believe they were both at the same time. So I don't think it's going to matter, though. It just Penn State seems really happy with both of these players. They're both really excited about Penn State, and I wouldn't be surprised if they make it back for even 2 more games this year. I'd be surprised actually if they don't come back for at least 1, potentially 2 more games. I'm sure we'll see him for a junior day in January, and then you're already talking about 5-6 visits in the span of 6 months. And when you see something like that usually means good things.
So it's a non-conference home game, which means Ryan Snyder is going to be jetting around the Northeast, looking at football players to you're taking your. Well, I don't know how fast you drive. Maybe it's getting close to jet speed. I don't know.
My wife would say it's too fast, but yeah, go on.
You're going around looking at different prospects and taking some games in person, and you're going to see a big one this weekend, right?
Yeah. This I've already seen LaSalle. I'm going to LaSalle McDonough down in Baltimore. I was hoping to see Abdul Carter play against Bishop McDevitt to start the year, and I think we've talked about this a couple of times. I get there and he was suspended, or excuse me, not suspended. I shouldn't have said that. I thought he may have been, but he wasn't. I believe he actually had a hamstring injury. At first, I thought because he was out and their star running back Sam Brown were out, and I'm like, why are these 2 guys out? So I assumed it was maybe that, but I do want to clarify that's not true. I believe they were both minor injuries. So anyway, they missed the McDevitt game, and now they're back, and LaSalle's cruising, man. They're 4-0 on the year. Wins over Bishop McDevitt, Malvern Prep, and Ematep Charter. McDonough's 1-2 on the year. They've been missing Dani for a couple games. They lost to Gonzaga and one other one. I forget exactly who, but they did get their first win against St. Mary's last week. And this is a perfect matchup. This is Dani Dennis-Sutton versus Abdul Carter. Whenever you get 2 Penn State players against each other, you have to go to those games. But it's not just those 2. Penn State has already offered Mason Robinson, defensive end, for 2023. They've offered Antonio Tripp for 2023. Both guys are. Listen, McDonough didn't play at all last year, so these are definitely 2 players that Penn State wants to watch film for, and it's not really anything negative on them. They just need to see film. They last played as freshmen, so I'll be curious to watch them.
So just a couple minor changes in human males between the ages of like 14 and 17.
Yeah,
just a couple.
Just a couple things. Yeah. But one other name I want to throw out there for Penn State fans, he's a freshman, 2025 wide receiver. It's Jeff Exeter Jr., I believe. I just know he's having a really good start to his freshman year, and I think he's going to end up being the next in line at McDonough that Penn State pushes hard for. Number 12 wide receiver, and he's a freshman, so he's another guy I'll be watching hard. And just excited to see Abdul Carter. Everybody, we've talked about Dani a ton. He's playing defensive tackle. He played well in that first game. A handful of tackles for loss, I believe, in his most recent game. Now they blew St. Mary's out, so I don't believe he played much in the second half. But I believe he once again had 3 or 4 tackles for a loss. I believe one of them was a sack. I feel like I know what to expect from Dani. Abdul's the one I kind of am a little bit more curious to see here. I know he's playing well so far this year, but just kind of seeing how much he's progressed and, everything from reading guards to pass coverage, we can go on. I mean, you've talked about it a ton. Linebacker is such a hard position to play. Yeah. So just seeing his progression and seeing if he's a little quicker, to diagnose plays, that's kind of been his one negative, if there is. I mean, he's a great prospect, don't get me wrong, but if there's one thing I think you've mentioned and I've mentioned, is just diagnosing plays, taking it from a second or two to a half a second and knowing where the ball's going. Because if he can figure that out and keep proving on it, man, he's going to be a hell of a player.
Yeah, and unlocking all of those unreal physical traits. I have
Mm-hmm.
a good friend of mine, actually, or a friend of mine from college, Bob Long. He actually covers LaSalle. And
I met Bob.
Oh, you met Bob? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but Bob and I were in. If you're in the Penn State College Comm, we are really getting narrowed down in the audience here. Comm Radio. He and I were in Comm Radio together, which is a club at Penn State, and he actually has a business where he does the LaSalle high school games, and he sent me.
I met him. Go ahead.
He just sent me the his film 2 weeks ago and said this is the best game he's played in his career because he follows
okay.
what I do on the film rooms. So he sent me that to look at. So that
Awesome.
I'm digging into some of that stuff with
Nice.
Abdul Carter this year, and it's a huge resource, man.
Awesome. Yeah, so I met Bob at the Bishop McDevitt game. We were both up on the top of the press box, and he did tell me, I forgot to tell you that. He did tell me that he knew you well, and we were talking about, he said, he's been watching these podcasts. So, Bob, if you're watching, man, hey,
thanks, Bob.
We
hey, Bob.
Appreciate you. I'll see you Saturday. Shout out to Bob Long Sports. We'll chat then. I was watching the way he films games, man. He can do like replays on his iPad and stuff. Yep. It's really cool.
It's super, it's a super helpful resource for me because you have the film, you have the replay, you can see it. It's really cool. And I watched, speaking of watching film from this year, I watched Dani's first game back. You suggested I take a look at the first half of that, and holy cow, he changed everything about his evaluation. Like what we talked about during the film room, and we've talked about him before, of his sophomore tape. He was a defensive tackle. He was a really fast defensive tackle. He is now fully a defensive end. I'm throwing up some clips here so you can see the way he moves. It's fundamentally different. He's more explosive. He moves better in space. He's leaner. All of those things are translating to real, very real world advantages and looking like that 5-star defensive end. So, I mean, Penn State.
Well,
they got a star. Like, he is a really good prospect.
And that was one thing I was trying to, and you knew this, but throughout the whole pandemic, he really transitioned his body, and that was one thing I remember talking to you about when you were watching this film. And, yes, what you see here isn't what we're seeing out at camps. And of course you watch all that camp stuff too. So you knew that to some degree, but just seeing him progress on the field with the pads on and all his hand work and all that stuff. It's really good to see. So I'm just really excited about this game, man. This is one that as soon as I knew Abdul Carter wasn't playing that McDevitt game, I had this one circled because I was originally going to go see Dani play earlier in the year too. And of course he was injured. So really excited about this. I will say I'm going to try and see Mekhi Flowers Friday night. They're playing State College down in Harrisburg. That's a little, I can kind of stop in Harrisburg and then go down to Baltimore the next day. So we'll see. I have it penciled in at the moment. I've seen Mekhi, of course, 3 or 4 times now. So and I'm sure CD East is playing pretty well. So I'm excited to maybe see them in the playoffs too. But hoping to squeeze that in if I can Friday night. But we're definitely going to Baltimore on Saturday, no doubt.
Last thing before we get into Ryan Snyder's best bets is there was a commitment this week. And 4-star cornerback Lamont Payne committed to the Nittany Lions for the class of 2023. He is the second player in the class now. So can you take us through what you know about the recruiting process for Lamont? He's a guy that you, before the Whiteout Weekend said keep your eye out for this, going all the way back to Lash Bash. He was a guy that you said keep your eye on. How did that all go down, and what was, kind of your impression of his recruiting process?
Yeah. Well, I've hit on. I think we've talked about Lamont Payne. I think more than anybody on this podcast, which is a good thing.
It's a good thing. It also it'll get Lamont Wade out of my brain and keeps it so I don't say because I'm sorry, a cornerback named Lamont from Pittsburgh. I'm gonna make that mistake at some point.
Yeah. I've definitely typed it. I'll say that, and then at least I get the backspace though. It's a little different than on these podcasts. But so I mean, look, Lamont got an offer. It's this past April. April 2021. And we knew then that Penn State was really interested, but he was one of those guys that they really wanted to get on campus as well. He came up the first week that they had camps and was great. And I've mentioned this a couple of times. I mean, he was really one of the only players, at least at that camp, that was able to stick with Caden Saunders. And I think that left a big impression. And now I wasn't at the camp, so I don't want to say like, yeah, he locked down Caden Saunders, because I've seen some people type that, and clearly they were watching the podcast. So thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know if he locked down Caden Saunders, because I haven't seen anybody lock down Caden Saunders. So I want to stress that. But he did a good job keeping up. That was the one thing that context really stressed after that camp and that's really where he went from a guy that they like and they're going to monitor his film to a guy that they love and they want to get committed immediately. So long story short, fast forward to 2 weeks later, he comes back for a personal visit. That personal visit gives him gives him all the time with the staff, all the film room time with Terry Smith, that one-on-one time with James Franklin. Another month later, comes back for the Lash Bash. He gets that family experience, that time with all the commits, doing what is it? They do a tour around
Scavenger hunt.
Campus. Yes, thank you. Scavenger hunt. Doing the scavenger hunt with all the other players. And so I guess what I'm stressing there is it's 3 different kind of visits where you really learn everything. That personal visit, you get to do all the one-on-one talks, learn about academics, and you come back for the Lash Bash, get to meet the players, get to meet the commits. And when you get those kind of visits, and plus you add into camp, which means he gets to work with Terry Smith and understand what he's like as a coach. When you add that all together, he really was one of those guys who just knew what Penn State had to offer. I mean, there really wasn't much more that he had to see except for a game. And that of course, was this past weekend. So we knew he was going to commit in the days leading up to it. I think I spoke with him. Well, we spoke with him a lot, actually, over the 10 days leading up to it. But, we did an interview, I think it was Thursday night. And I will say, I think James Franklin was genuinely surprised because, man, I watched that the commitment. We knew he was doing the handshake at midfield. I'm going to commit to James then. And James was absolutely ecstatic. So just a good pickup, man. This is a good player. You can break down his film. You've already kind of done it. But off the field, on the field, there's a lot to like. He has been playing with an injury this year, so I've been stressing that to people when you look at his film now and compare it maybe to last year a little bit. He definitely was playing with a lower body injury. I don't know all the specifics. I do know that he is back. I don't know if he's 100% though. I am curious. I will go out there and see him at some point, so just curious to watch his progress. But everything off the field's great. And, oh, by the way, he's very good friends with a lot of top players in Pittsburgh. So to have that guy with a foot in the door already, welcoming in Tamir Robinson, the Riley Gallaghers, the Quentin Martins, all those guys, it's a big boost for Penn State's efforts in Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and a really good player. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, one of the benefits is you get to see some of the stuff that we're talking about. Threw up a couple of the breakdowns I did for T. Frank's Film Room. Shameless plug. This is T. Frank's Film Room. You can find it on our YouTube channel only. On our YouTube channel. And of course, we do have a breakdown of a simple kind of rundown at bwi.rivals.com of Lamont Payne. He's the 4-star cornerback that we did this week, looking into some of his skills. And if you're watching our YouTube show, you saw exactly what he brings to the table. And if you want to get into some more about how that injury has kind of affected his evaluation, because it is obvious on film, and we get into that in the breakdown. He is a very good player at finding the football. This is another one of those situations where Penn State has been prioritizing finding guys with instincts, and I think they found another guy that has those. And then the question then becomes, I think, on his evaluation is, okay, he was a sophomore last season, super impressive. That's where he put all that ball production on film. Where has he gone, a la Dennis-Sutton, changing his body in 1 year? Where has he progressed in that athletic profile? It's hard to read right now with the injury, so that's kind of what we're holding off on. But if you want the full breakdown of all of his skills, because it's not just finding the football, he's good at a lot of different things. You can check that out on our YouTube page. And that is actually a good thing to bring up here, because it's not just our YouTube page. We got all kinds of great content at Blue White Illustrated. Visit bluewhiteillustrated.com for the latest Penn State football and recruiting news, like you got here, but you get more on the inside. You would have had these little nuggets from Ryan a week and a half ago if you were part of our premium message board, the Lions Den Forum, for more insider information and to be on the cutting edge of knowledge. The October issue also out on our newsstands, featuring Penn State's Freaks List and other exclusive content for Blue White Illustrated. Learn more at bluewhiteonline.com or by calling customer service at 800-421-7751. And of course, another, I'm just going to throw it up here again because I spent a lot of time on this graphic.
It was nice.
Our YouTube page. Our YouTube page, where you get all the information, all the down low from me, from T. Frank's Film Room to the BWI Daily Edition to the Recruiting Podcast and our live shows post-game for Penn State football season. All kinds of content coming at you from every angle from Blue White Illustrated.
The live show has been awesome, man. I've been listening in. I usually stay back in the press box while the guys go down, and I usually get stories ready and all that, and I've been listening to the live show, and I think you and Tom are really good together. I'm not trying to kiss butt right now or anything like that, but you guys are doing a great job with that. And I don't know how you break it down quick, man. Like, usually for me, I need to watch the game again when I'm in the press box, because I'm usually also like cutting photos and doing different things. But yeah, man, you guys break it down really well. Tom's a heck of a broadcaster, we'll say. Yeah. You can tell. I mean, he's
awesome.
Yeah,
I know you're a fan of wrestling. If you've watched WWE, unfortunately, and I'm gonna say this, and I think Tom knows this already. I've never really watched wrestling, so I never actually saw him do his craft. But he was formerly Tom Phillips on WWE, and he is a phenomenal broadcaster. He's another guy I've known since college. We were in comm radio together, so all my buddies and I are just covering Penn State football now, and it's a ton of fun. And you know what? You bring that up. It is one of the advantages of, I love being at the game live because you get all of the things. But from a review perspective, I have a phenomenal replay system. I can watch things and I can do stuff at home that I could not do at the game. And as much as I miss all of that and being in that environment, being able to see what coverage is being run, it is invaluable to have the ability to just go in and replay things however I want. So I'm giving you instant analysis. It's not always the most refined because I don't have 2 days to break it down like I will for the Monday show or for my film review, but I do give you the broad strokes of what the basic plan was for each team in the game. So you'll get that for Villanova and some broad strokes of what Penn State did or didn't do during that game on the post-game show. Okay. Enough of me talking about me. We got to get to your thing, which
hold on 1 second.
Okay,
what's up?
Never
mind. I was going to say, do you want to talk one thing real quick before we do best bets? Let's talk about Villanova and the guys coming in for the recruits.
Oh yes,
I got a handful of names so far. I figured it'd be good to throw a couple of them out there.
Yes, I jumped the gun. My bad.
It's all good. So Sean Battle, cornerback from Newman Goretti, is expected to come up. And he's another guy in those boats that I think Penn State's really trying to watch this film right now to get a feel for, just how hard they're going to pursue him. Right now, I do think that he's someone that can realistically end up in this class. So let's just see how his film progresses during the season. We'll get a better feel for that. But he was up for the Lash Bash. And whenever Penn State's inviting you to the Lash Bash, you're a pretty important prospect. So we're expecting him to get his first visit in this weekend. And then two more guys I really want to mention. We have a deeper list on the website, but two guys I want to bring up. Dylan Senda. He's a 6'5", 274 center or guard potentially from Dearborn, Michigan. Dylan camped with Penn State in the summertime, so he's going to come back now for a visit. He ran a 4.7 shuttle at 280 pounds. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a pretty good number. So show fairly quick feet, and Penn State, like I said, Penn State's definitely looking for a quality center prospect, and he could potentially fit that. Now I think Alex Birchmeyer could be a heck of a center too. That's what I really wrote after his commitment. But we'll see how it progresses. So he's another, just like Kobe Keenum, another center kind of guard to keep an eye on for. And then one other guy I really want to mention is Robert Sweeney. He's an offensive tackle prospect from Dallas, Texas. He's coming all the way up from Dallas, man. So, there must be a pretty good relationship there. I haven't got to know Robert too much yet. I'll definitely be reaching out to him after the game. But he has early offers from Arizona State, Florida State, and Maryland, as well as Penn State. And I'm just kind of looking forward to to learn more about his relationship with the staff because, like I said, man, whenever you're making the trip from Dallas, Texas to watch Penn State Villanova,
Yeah.
you must have a serious interest in Penn State and it's over, waiting for another game. Maybe this is the only game his schedule worked for. I'm not sure. But
there are no direct flights into State College from Dallas, Texas.
I assume he's flying to Pittsburgh. It was funny talking to all the recruits who came here for the whiteout and had to fly. And, there was like, I had to go to Philly or I had to go to Pittsburgh and I had to drive 2.5 hours. And, you get halfway through that drive and they're like, where the hell am I? It was fun. It was fun. Those are usually the talk or the quotes I leave out of the stories. But, it's nothing negative or anything. But a bunch of them were just like, I flew from Pittsburgh, or I drove from Pittsburgh to State College, and halfway through I'm up in these mountains and I have no idea where we're at. It was fun. A lot of these kids are from places that are very different than Central Pennsylvania. We'll leave it at that. So all right, time for best bets. Let's go.
Here we go. Okay, so here is our list for the week. As always, we go with the game that we cover in Penn State and their weekly opponent. But here is the rest of the lineup from Ryan. So give us your breakdown of Ryan's best bets this week.
All right. So first off, everybody's mad at me because I'm not picking better games. And I want to clarify that this is not Ryan's favorite games of the week.
These aren't the best games to watch.
Or the best games to watch this week. But yeah, so we're going to go, of course, with Villanova, Penn State. We'll talk about that at the end. I like Notre Dame, Wisconsin. I like Wisconsin there. We'll get into that in a second. Buffalo at Old Dominion, and of course, LSU at Mississippi State. So since everybody hates the fact that I'm talking about games that don't matter, we will start with the one that maybe doesn't matter to many people, which is Buffalo at Old Dominion.
You love these MAC teams. You love the MAC. You're finding the value there.
Okay, so first off, I got to clarify one thing before we get into this game. I'm 11-9 on the year. I really should be 12-8. I don't know if you watched Boise State last week, but they got absolutely hosed. I had a 2-4 week last week. Should have been 3-3. Boise State has a fumble that they pick up, scoop and score, and some ref decides to blow the whistle when the Boise State defender is 20 yards out. Of course, it ends up being a fumble when they review it.
Yeah,
Boise ball goes all the way back to there, and then Boise State's offense isn't able to punch it in. So I'm still a little pissed off about that, if I'm being honest, because that should have been
a ref with a quick whistle. Who would have thought?
Yeah, Penn State fans know all about bad refereeing last week. There's bad refereeing everywhere. That was the one thing I really learned Sunday when I was recapping the week in college football. So it is what it is. We're 2-4.
This is a total side conversation, but I was part of an interview a couple years ago where the topic was referees are a dying breed. Like, there is no one going into refereeing. So that's part of the problem is, like, you probably have guys that are working a bunch of games or that are brand new or that, whatever. Like, you're incompetent, but there's nobody to replace you. So I think that's a real problem.
Yeah. Who would want to do that in 2021 with social media and just, man, when you make a bad call, it's not like it used to be where you read it in the paper and, some people in your town will give you, a hard time about it. Like,
we talked about it for 4 days on this channel. 4 days we talked about it.
Yeah. I normally feel bad for the refs, especially when, there's those, like, some targeting calls are hard and whatnot. Yeah. I'm one of those people who kind of feels for him sometimes. Obviously, missing a down and some of those other calls are inexcusable, but man, it's a hard job. So, but I'm still really mad at that Boise State, was it Oklahoma State ref last week? It should have been a 3-3 week. The
best thing to do in that situation is nothing. Like, you don't do anything, and you have the saving grace of replay. I know that. I know that, like, the best thing for me to do in that situation would be like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to let replay take care of it. It's a turnover. But no, the quick whistle, and that's a bummer. That is a bummer.
And we're like, obviously replay's been around for like almost a decade now, but we're about 3-4 years into it since that whole the fumble and not blowing the whistle rule. That was really kind of changed. I don't know. I would think it was like 3, 4, 5 years ago where that was a major emphasis of let the play go out. And we still see that all the time though. Why are you blowing the whistle? Like you think it wasn't a fumble, like just don't touch it. Let the play out. It's just so, that's just one of those ones that are so silly to me. Like your job ref is to not do anything. And of course you just got to put your freaking whistle into it and, screw everything up. So, okay, we're dragging us on here. Let's get this out of the way.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with Buffalo at Old Dominion, and I will take Buffalo minus 13. I think Maurice Lindquist has a pretty good squad. I watched them against Coastal Carolina. Of course, I should have had the over in Coastal Carolina Buffalo last week too. I'm not going to go on a tangent on that, but Coastal Carolina throws an interception at the goal line, which, if all they needed was one more touchdown, of course, that would have went over. So it really should have been a 4-2 week. But anyway, let's move on. I love Ricky Ronnie. I'm sure everybody here listening loves Ricky, but they have a lot of recruiting to do. I don't think that roster is very deep right now. So recruiting really needs to be an emphasis for them. And of course, with the pandemic and everything last year, they were really, had one hand tied behind their back as far as,
they
scouting.
Didn't play, right? They didn't
No,
play.
they didn't. Yeah, Old Dominion didn't play at all.
Yeah, they didn't
But even
play.
just like from a scouting and recruiting perspective, yes, they kept recruiting, but it was just for that to be your first full recruiting class is incredibly difficult. You know? So that I think that really kind of hurt them. They brought in some decent transfers. I think Zach Coots got a touchdown last week, or at least against Hampton, I believe he did. So happy for him. But look, I think Buffalo's a solid squad. Like I said, I watched them play Coastal Carolina. They're not turning the ball over. I think they have just one turnover on the year. Yes, Old Dominion beat up on Hampton, but man, Wake rolled over them. It was like 42-10. I think Liberty rolled 45-17. Yes. Buffalo isn't either of those teams, but I think they're a pretty physical team, man. That's really what I saw in that Coastal Carolina game. They can run the ball well too, and that's gonna be the difference. I think they're gonna beat Old Dominion in the trenches, and in the second half, man, they're really gonna beat down on them. So only given 2 touchdowns here. Yes, it is on the road, and I don't expect Old Dominion to be too much of a hostile environment. I hope Ricky Ronnie and his staff. I wish them all the best moving forward. I'm a big fan of a lot of guys on their staff. They were great people when they were up here, but I gotta take the Bulls on this one minus 13.
Going with your head, not with your heart. That's kind of what the game is, right? Let's go to the next one so that people like to talk about this game a little more. It is the sexy game of the week with the most juice because it is Notre Dame, Wisconsin at Soldier Field. So what are you seeing in this game?
That should be fun, man. That's going to be a fun tailgate out at Soldier Field, out there on the lake, man. It's a shame it's a noon start, and I'm sure both fan bases are annoyed by that after paying a pretty price for those tickets. But anyway, look, I just don't think Notre Dame's very good. I had Florida State earlier in the year. We talked about that. We had Florida State earlier in the year. Look, Florida State gashed Notre Dame. I think it was like 264 yards rushing in that game. Toledo had 124 yards rushing against them 2 weeks ago. And for some reason, Purdue tried to throw the ball 54 times last week. Why? I'll just never kind of understand that. But look, this is a perfect matchup, I think, for Wisconsin. They should be able to control both lines of scrimmage. Notre Dame's offensive line is not very good this year. I think their defensive line is really getting pushed around a lot. And look, I've never been a big fan of Jack Cohn. Now he's going against his old team here. You know Wisconsin's defense is going to be fired up. They already have one loss that, I think some people would argue they should have beat Penn State in that game. So I'll lay the 6 here. I think this will be a low-scoring game. I actually kind of like the under, too, at 46. I could see this being like a 21-17 kind of game if Notre Dame sticks with it. But I think the final score is going to be something like 24-17 or 24-14. I just don't expect Notre Dame to put up some points against that defense. And in the end, I expect Wisconsin on both sides, offense and defensive line, to take advantage of a rebuilding Notre Dame squad.
Yeah, especially when we saw that Wisconsin line up front, the defensive line, about what they can do to an offense that either an offensive line that isn't communicating or might not be, up to snuff, because they they are fast and they get after you. And when we were talking to Jay Kokorowski that week, and he told me that they were doing less two-gapping, they're going to be more aggressive with their defensive line. I was like, well, that's a problem, because you've looked at some of the guys that have come through that Wisconsin offensive line. The only thing that was holding them back was their responsibilities, as far as their ability to play both run and pass. This is also, Wisconsin's coming off a bye, right? They had their off week this week, so they're coming into this game fresh. Do you think that Graham Mertz can kind of pull it back together? Because if there's one thing that Notre Dame does have usually, is they do reload on the defensive side of the ball. Do they have enough playmakers that you've seen to frustrate that offense?
Oh, they definitely have a good secondary.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's going to be about Graham Mertz. It's going to be about Ched's, was it Malusi?
Malusi,
yeah. This is going to be about him. I expect them to just run the hell out of the ball and really take advantage of a front seven for Notre Dame that just hasn't had success shutting down the run this year. So that's what I see. If Mertz can kind of just be more of a game manager in this situation, get a touchdown, don't turn it over. He had some really silly turnovers in that Penn State game, and if you take them away, that game's a different kind of game, I think. So, I think Penn State's defense is better than Notre Dame's defense. 24-14, that's kind of the score I see here, and I would expect Wisconsin to rush for at least 200 yards, probably well beyond that.
So you said you're taking the points in this one, or are you taking the under and the points?
We're going to do Wisconsin -6, but okay. I also... I like under 46 too. So either one there, I don't really have much of a gripe with. But for my official play, we'll do Wisconsin -6.
Let's flash this up here one more time for our last game before Penn State, so you can see the full list that we've gone through so far. What you don't see up there is our conversation about the referees. But our last one, LSU at Mississippi State. Whew, this one feels a little tricky to me. What are you looking at in this one?
I love this.
Yeah?
I love this one. Yeah. I think LSU's not very good, man. Period.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the air raid. I'm
not either. I'm not either. But look, they've played 3 quality opponents so far. Louisiana Tech's a good team. NC State's a good team. Memphis is a good team. They really should have beat Memphis last year. I don't know if you, or last week, did you see that punt where they thought was down, but then the guy picks it up and takes it to the house? I don't know if you saw that highlight, but that was definitely a mistake by the refs. I think there was 2 errors on that play. So, but look, I think just Mississippi State has been tested more. They're at home here, and remember they romped LSU last year. That was an embarrassing loss for LSU, and I just think they're tested more. So whenever I can get +3, give me the cowbells. It is an early start down there, but their fans will be ready to go. I do think UCLA is a pretty good team, and we got to learn a little bit. Of course, LSU lost that game, but they played Central Michigan last week. Central Michigan put 21 points up on LSU. That should never be happening against LSU defenses that we've come to expect. So. Yeah, getting 3, I could see this being I actually kind of like Mississippi State in the money line, which I believe is +140-ish. If you're looking for a nice dog in a juicy money line, I like Mississippi State a lot, actually. So, yeah, I'll gladly take the 3 at home. LSU has done nothing to show me that they're the LSU that we would expect. And Mississippi State, they're 2-1 on the year. Excuse me, I almost set my mic over. They're 2-1 on the year. Should really be 3-0. And their games have all been against quality opponents. So I feel like they're going in the right direction, and LSU, they feel like the same LSU we saw last year.
Yeah, and this is what I said week 1 is the only thing I trust less than Chip Kelly is Ed Ogeron without Joe Brady making him look good. And this is the same situation last year. LSU, and just from a schematic perspective, the air raid is kind of simple in a certain way. It's testing you vertically, and what you do is you play coverage. What teams have done against Penn State, that's what you do. You just drop 4 into the deep secondary, and if you want to, hell, drop 8, and you're fine. And then you just rally and tackle. LSU played man coverage nose to nose, and they lost big. Are they going to make that mistake again? Because it's not that hard. It's not that much of a complicated mathematical formula. But is Ed Ogeron and is that defensive staff willing to change? And do they have the ability to stay disciplined and not do something like that? Because Mike Leach's offense, I think you've seen it. It will go for 500 yards passing, and then it will go for 184. And it just depends on whether or not you are disciplined enough to not get annoyed by the dink and dunk, because that's what's going to happen. And to me, that's why I say I don't like this game at all, because I don't trust LSU, but I really don't trust that offense to consistently put up points and meaningful points in games. That's my biggest problem with this matchup of why I would try and stay away from this one. But I agree with you as far as
cowbell, baby. More cowbell. Dude, they're so annoying. I'd be so annoyed if I was a Wade fan down there. But go on. Sorry.
That was our thing growing up. My high school, we had the cowbell because we were.
Oh, really?
It was a farmer high. Like literally, my entire high school was surrounded by dairy farms. They nicknamed the field the pasture of Payne. So we had cowbells the whole time.
Yeah, that's a high school though. Like 400 or 500 people. Like, imagine like 60,000 cowbell. Oh my God, it's so annoying.
Yeah,
that's like the Seminole. Oh, that's so annoying too. But
so let's get into our last game. Let's get into Penn State Villanova. The line is pretty steep here. So what are you looking at? Are you taking Penn State with the points here? Or are you looking at a play that you want to do elsewhere?
Over. I'm kind of leaning over 54 here.
Okay.
We kind of talked about this at the beginning of the show. Villanova can score, and yes, I don't expect them to score against Penn State's top defense. But what I do expect is for Penn State to be up pretty healthy going in that second half. I've been trying to find a first half line on Penn State, and I haven't seen too many books put it out yet. But if there's a first half line of -17, I would be very interested in that. With this being an FBS versus FCS game, some books kind of stay away from that stuff because they know sharps will take advantage of it.
Yeah.
But if you find a -17 for first half for Penn State, I like it. So I haven't found that yet though. Let's see if they put it out.
I looked a little bit earlier when I was doing this, and I could not find the game listed. I know you look at a couple different places. I literally signed up for one sports book so that I could make these graphics for you. So I'm getting my education in this stuff, and I did not find Penn State Villanova. I assumed I did something wrong. So I'm glad to know that's not the case.
Most of these books will wait for FBF, FCS games like this. They'll wait until today, or like even sometimes they won't put them out till early tomorrow morning. There are a couple books that have it up now though, and like I said, over 54. I expect Penn State to be able to get into the 40s here. So can Villanova basically score a touchdown or maybe get 2 or 10 points late in the game against, Penn State's second and third stringers? We haven't seen a lot of those. We got a little bit of Ball State, but normally, if you look back on previous years, James really likes to play his young guys early in the year, loves to get them as many reps as possible, especially with that 4-game red shirt rule now. So I really expect to see the young guys a lot in the second half. And again, Villanova actually has a pretty good offense. They're averaging 45 points a year now. So, or 45 points on the season now. So, yeah, I think this could be a 48-10 kind of game, something like that. And I think we'll see Nova put up some late points. So that's what I will lean. I mean, Penn State. I mean, if Penn State fans are going to bet this, they're probably going to bet Penn State -29, and that seems simple.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot of backups in this game. One thing I will also say, though, is I think you're going to see Taquan Roberson, maybe even Christian Veilleux a good bit. And those guys are going to be motivated to score. And especially some of the other younger guys who haven't gotten the reps on offense. So I do expect Penn State to keep scoring at the end. That's why I'm just going to go with the over here. I think Villanova will get some late points. I think Penn State will get some late points. Clifford in the first unit should get at least 4 to 5 touchdowns, depending on when they're pulled. Yeah. So I think once we get to the fourth quarter, you'll see Villanova, do their best to get 2 touchdowns, and I think you could get one out of Taquan Roberson, and we'll see a 48-10 kind of game. So
all right, so let's roll back and let's recap what we got so far, and you can tell us here as I put this fancy thing back up. So once again, roll through your picks this week about what you're looking for in these 4 games.
So we're 11-9 ATS on the season. Really should be better than that, but I won't take your time. Buffalo 13 over Old Dominion. I'll take Wisconsin -6 against Notre Dame. I think they should really have success in the rushing game. Mississippi State getting 3 at home against LSU. If you find a good money line on Mississippi State, don't be afraid to take it. But I'll take the 3 points for my play. And then I will take over 54 in the Penn State Villanova game. I expect a motivated Twaquan Roberson to try and put up some late points. I expect Penn State's second, third string defensive backs late in the game to maybe give away a touchdown or two for Villanova, and we'll look at 48-10, 48-14. That's what I expect the score to be.
Ryan Snyder giving you recruiting inside information, and he's helping out your pocketbook all in the same show. Thanks so much for this. I enjoy and I look forward to our Fridays.
Love it, man. It works out well for me. You get this done in the morning. I hit the road. I'm enjoying it. Let's win some money, though.
Yeah, let's do that. That'll do it today for the BWI Daily Edition. That'll do it for this week. Don't forget, coming up 15 minutes after the game, BWI Live, the post-game show on YouTube. And make sure you subscribe to YouTube and to our podcast, wherever you get the podcast, because shortly after we're done with the show, we do post an audio version in case you missed it live. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. We'll talk to you then.